Every once in a while, once in a really long while, we're able to use the phrase poetry on screen. It doesn't happen often, and we cannot abuse the phrase and take away its value. As the audience, we are just grateful that we are able to watch and re-watch such magic on celluloid. Let's talk about one such special film, Pesum Padam. The storyline is so simple and so innocent. An unemployed young man gets to live like a millionaire for a few days, finds love, escapes death, and comes back a whole circle back to where it all started from. Feels rather simple, but if you have not watched the film yet, here is a big catch. There are no dialogues. 56 years after we started having dialogues being spoken in Indian films, the legendary Singeetham Srinivasa Rao had a eureka moment when he was assisting on a film set. The story goes then that the entire plot came to him, like many outstanding ideas do, when he was under the shower. Unemployment was the core theme of many dark and depressing movies in the 80s, and the director here chose a similar subject but chose to treat it as a silent satire instead. Kamal Haasan was a straightforward pick for the male lead, and it is quite mind-blowing to note that Kamal had his magnum opus Nayakan and Pesum Padam both released not only in the same year but within a month of each other. Kamal is absolutely flawless and puts in a performance that we frankly cannot imagine any other lead star doing any justice to. The talented and beautiful Amala was surprisingly not the first choice for the lead female character in the film, but we can't think of anyone who could have done a better job on this role. The last time we saw Amala in a Tamil film was almost 30 years back, when she was only 24 years old. So if you're listening, ma'am, please do consider a comeback. The fact that the film had no dialogues allowed the filmmakers to cast actors from all over the country and release in 5 languages, which was a commercial masterstroke that made possible some beautiful experimental cinema. In the other languages, the film was named in variants of Pushpak or Pushpaka Vimana, a reference to the mythical flying vehicle, possibly as a metaphor for living one's dreams for a brief while. In Tamil though, they chose to go with the more lyrical sounding Pesum Padam, or the picture that speaks. The whole film was shot in Bangalore, with most of the scenes in 2 locations. The Windsor Manor Hotel, which has eventually become synonymous with the film, and one ultra-realistic film set erected by art director Tota Dharani to house Kamal's character. The very first sequence of the film is a little underwhelming, to be honest. We are introduced literally as first to the domestic helper lady and the elderly old man who's ogling at her first thing in the morning. For a film that manages to keep every character as realistic as possible, one can't help wonder why the director saw a need to hypersexualize the cleaning lady. Just when we are starting to worry if this is going to be that kind of movie, the film quickly moves into its own territory, which is far more innocent and a whole lot more fun. Kamal Haasan lives a modest life in a little shack on the terrace of a building that is curiously named Ananda Bhavan, and it cannot be a coincidence that we are not even told his name. He is simply the character, a struggling, unemployed graduate. Interestingly, we are given the 1-minute capsule version of the story very early on, when Kamal tries to unfairly jump a queue to get himself a job and quickly gets pushed all the way back to the end of the line. The introduction of the gorgeous Amala is love at first sight for the audience when she is in a store buying some earrings. The director smartly manages to keep us engaged when Amala is not on screen with some super interesting and pretty wicked magic tricks by K.S. Ramesh, a real-life magician who also plays Amala's magician dad on screen. Kamal chances upon a guy who's drunk and passed out on the side of the road and also seems to have the keys to paradise in his trouser pockets. He quickly ties the guy up and stashes him away in his little room while he impersonates the rich guy living the fancy high life in the Pushpak hotel. We absolutely loved the little touch where Kamal finds it difficult to fall asleep in the fancy room, which is almost too comfortable and too silent, and has to run back to his own house to record the sounds from the old cinema next door that is playing Chinese Shaolin films to help him to drift off to sleep. A subtle way to tell us that he feels like he quite doesn't belong in the star hotel yet. The fancy hotel is also where Kamal becomes the unintended target of one of the coolest assassins in Indian cinema, played by Tinu Anand. Cool because he's always walking around with a mobile cooler in his hand that carries some vicious melting ice daggers. The assassin has been hired by the versatile Pratap Pothan in a cameo looking to kill off the millionaire. How Kamal escapes death on multiple occasions and what comes of his romance forms the rest of the story. The film has so many scenes that stand out individually and yet come together beautifully as a part of the screenplay. Like the scene at the beginning of the film where Kamal fills his half glass of tea with nuts and bolts literally to have it rise to the brim of the cup. Inspired by the story of the crow, sure, but also wonderfully showing how he wants to have more and also wants to be seen as having more as he confidently walks to his window to show off his now full glass. So simple and yet says so much without saying a word. The scenes between Kamal and the beggar, played by Telugu actor P.L. Narayana, which are shot symbolically on that famous bridge in Bangalore, which the director picked because it is the perfect visual metaphor for the bridge between the rich and the poor. In one of the initial scenes of the film, Kamal tries to flaunt his relative riches in front of the beggar and is quickly cut down to size when the beggar shows him the piles of money that he's actually sitting on. Towards the end of the film is another powerful sequence where Kamal's character undergoes a moment of enlightenment and a change of heart. This is just deep, masterful visual storytelling. Every single scene that has Kamal and Amala together on screen is just to die for, just like their detailed introductions, done so poetically, gesturing to each other from their respective balconies. The standout romantic sequence though is the one at the funeral where the lead pair walks around the dead body multiple rounds holding hands as their acquaintance blossoms into proper love. This sequence came in for high praise from the great Satyajit Ray. The background score is by L. Vaidyanathan, who is the brother of two other acclaimed violinists, Sri L. Shankar and Sri L. Subramaniam. The music of this film needed a certain maturity and a certain genuine quality, and Sri L. Vaidyanathan was able to absolutely delight us with some memorable tunes in the ragas close to Bhageshri and Tilang, and some others in the raga Jog. It is actually a neat touch that the horn of Amala's car in the film goes like, which is actually singing the theme track of the film, na 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 na. While this theme track is the most delightful aspect of the background score, the scenes with the killer and the millionaire have a Chaplin-esque quality with some drunken trumpets and some dangerous Tom and Jerry type symphonic arrangements thrown in. The music score of the film is almost a tiny notch understated and manages to sound really different from many other films of the era. Pesum Padam is a completely different and immersive cinematic experience, and we highly recommend you watch it. Remember, language is not a barrier here. The film won the National Award for Best Popular Film providing wholesome entertainment, so please go right ahead. While the film is a wonderful social commentary on the times, it also makes for riveting drama filled with humor, romance, suspense, and heartbreak. Last but not the least, you don't need any other reason to watch this film other than the outstanding performance by Nayakan Kamal Haasan. You can catch this film on Amazon Prime. Do watch it and come back and let us know what you thought of the film in the comments section below the video. See you soon with yet another special film.